of the reasons that February is among my favorite times of year has nothing to do with the current weather conditions. It has to do with what's to come. And it's that time of year when we start to see the commercials for the Masters. We start to dream about green grass, and we start to get a little teaser for what's coming in the world of equipment. And in my world, that means it's time for me to connect with Brian Minbiole, my longtime friend from Callaway, for an annual fitting for yours truly, to provide the clubs and stuff that you all will see on our TV show coming up in the season ahead. So it was just a couple days ago, Brian and I connected at the Larry Hamilton Golf Studios in Rochester Hills. And once again, Brian, you put up with seeing my swing for an hour or so, and we talked through the I don't know, the kind of the nuances of my game and how it fits with the new line of clubs coming from Callaway. So let's start here. Why does fitting matter for myself or for anyone? Why do we care?
Well, again, congratulations and thanks for having me on again, Bill. It is exciting. The fitting ideal is so important as getting the right tools. You know, the carpenter makes sure he's got the right tools. The guy who's fixing your car has the right tools. And the level of passion that people have for our game is boundless at this point in time. I mean, we're more popular than we've ever been in the world of golf. And for people who are even making golf a casual, entertaining part of their day, they want to get the maximum amount of enjoyment out of what is a very challenging game. And I think not only having equipment that is designed for you from our geniuses out in California, but to then having it tweaked and really built for you gives you some added confidence. And I like the belief of knowing that every time you go to attack a shot, you might have a frame of reference in your mind of this is what I want to do with my capabilities. It's great to know that you've got 14 tools in that bag plus a golf ball that are designed to help you achieve your maximum potential. It takes some of the excuse work out for sure, but there's nothing worse than I've seen somebody put a quality move on a golf shot and get a less than result, and then they blame themselves. And yes, there's plenty of operator error in our game. We're all guilty of it, but having the right tool takes a big part of that equation and puts it in your favor.
I was at the West Michigan Golf Show last weekend, and part of that show in the floor space, the same thing will happen in Novi in March, has become very retail oriented. So you've got your destinations, but then you have your hard goods. Your retailers are setting up their discount bins. They're trying to move stuff out that they otherwise were, probably going to donate to First Tee. And there are thousands of golfers who are just going through and they're just picking stuff out of a big barrel, and that's their new hybrid, or that's their new fairway metal, or sometimes their new driver or putter. And I'm all, hey, get your clubs, get out and play. I have no problems with that. But I do think that we are missing something if we're literally just going and buying clubs out of a barrel without even a modicum of interest in whether or not this is the best club for me. Just because it's $27 doesn't mean that it fits your body type and your swing and your game. So I know you preach that gospel all the time. What would you say to those that are looking for bargains over customization?
I think at some point in virtually everything that we're experiencing in this world today, you do get what you pay for. And in some cases, we're all paying significantly more for fundamental things. And with I believe the level of investment that we make as golfers in our game, in our research, in how we practice, where we choose to play, watching your show to see amazing destinations to go play. I don't think you would ever minimize your vacation by not bringing the appropriate things with you on vacation, or here's your car that you're going to drive where you need to have extra amount of space to haul your children or your gear around. I think it's a basic fundamental of looking. I am all for people trying to get the best possible deal, but you can get a really good price on a pair of shoes that don't fit, and you're going to be miserable as a result. And so I'm a big believer that with the varieties of equipment out there from a number of manufacturers, obviously more Callaway focused between our conversation today, there's certain levels of investment you can make, but what I see most prominently with people that I engage with, golf is not only your passion, it's your birthright. This is what I want to do. And I think an investment of time, an investment of well-spent dollars, and just the coordination of working with someone who knows your game and can really find equipment that fits that need. I think the level of appreciation and excitement and reward you get from this game is immeasurable. And if Mama said it's too good to be true at that price, maybe in fact it is. And I think a small measure of extra homework and finding someone that you can work with, have some trust in, that understands where you're going, they can find you a really good deal. But the best deal comes from well-fit equipment that you feel, helps take your game to the next level.
And defining well fit, I think, is important, because there are some degrees of, and I'll use air quotes here, fitting, where someone will tell you in the sporting goods store, well, stand up straight, let your arms hang down, and we're going to fit you with a club, and they're going to grab one that apparently just barely touches the floor or something like that. Can you kind of break down briefly the difference between an actual club fitting and the version that just says, well, you're 6'1", so here's the club that's fit for you?
Well, I think static fitting and dynamic fitting have to marry. We can make some very solid, educated guesses based on your physical type, your size, and I can get a really good fundamental that might, in fact, remove a whole bunch of options at that point and really allow me to focus in on several. But it's the dynamic that happens during your move. You're a tall player who plays tall. I've seen an awful lot of tall players who have a tendency, because they've had ill-fit equipment, their swing forces them thinking that they need something that's shorter because maybe that's all they've ever had access to. As we become less and less flexible, I did a fitting this morning for an individual who's absolutely committed to our game, and he can't figure out why the current clubs he has don't fit him. As he told me, he's now had them for 8 years and he's put on 30 pounds. Well, I had said to him, you're not wearing the same pair of pants or the same shirt that you wore 5-6 years ago. And all of a sudden the light goes on. I said, we work with what we've got. As I said, Father Time and Mother Nature are undefeated. And as we start to age and as these start to go, I think the dynamics of what happens with the golf swing become very, very real. And I think the opportunity to have a basic standard fit that lets me realize where I should start, and then it allows me to take you to the next level, is really important. Again, you and I talk an awful lot about everything being automotive, being here in Michigan. You do a lot of that basic static fitting when you go to the car dealer. I need something that gets this amount of mileage, has this amount of space, gives me this level of comfort. Well, you've eliminated an awful lot of cars on the lot at that point. And then we can go and take your test drive and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't need all that extra space because my mileage goes way down. I have an adequate amount of space. My mileage is better and the ride's significantly more comfortable. I think that's the dynamic fitting part of it. So I think there is definitely ways to go through that. Obviously, we like to have the look of the product that we think we fit. We like the look. And then all of a sudden, a really good fitter builds off what appeals to your eye, might appeal to your game. And then we make the prescription that takes it to that next level.
And one of the things, Brian, that I've always appreciated about your approach to this is that there are times when the best fitted clubs for a golfer are not the most expensive clubs. It's not an automatic default. Use the car analogy. It's fairly uncommon for the car salesman to recommend a lower end of the price line. It does happen, but it's less common. In the world of club fitting, I've always appreciated the honesty that comes out that says to that golfer, listen, yeah, I could probably get you into this top of the line that you're seeing on tour, but the reality is your game isn't geared in that way. Why don't we save you a few $100s and why don't we get you into this? I think there's got to be kind of an integrity agreement almost made between a good club fitter and the golfer.
Absolutely. And I think, obviously Callaway is a premier premium line, and, I've used the definition when I'm speaking to my customers. I've got a Buick and I've got a Cadillac. Of course, when you go out to California, it's a 5 Series and a 7 Series BMW, but you get the reference. And a lot of people who aspire to play Callaway realize that, there is that hurdle in terms of that. I think our performance greatly outweighs any sort of price consideration in that regard. But our super top of the line stuff may in fact be a perfect fit for you, but it's not automatic. And I think having the opportunity to try several things, let's match up the numbers, let's match up the look and see what the best spend comes. I've always said that buyer's remorse is a pain that hardly ever goes away. And I've always been really committed to making sure if somebody wants to go through the process, especially with me, and go through this whole deal, I want to have that agreement that you speak with, that I want you in the best possible equipment. And it may not be the most expensive, but it's also one of those deals where I think we have some sense of ideal between us of what the end goal is. And I'm very pleased that the bulk of the golfers that I get to interact with, this is a main form of their entertainment. They're willing to spend adequate and applicable dollars to maximize their enjoyment of our sport. And I'm very grateful that Callaway gives me a number of options with which to serve that need.
And those options aren't just in clubs, it also extends to balls, right? Not everybody needs to play the top of the line tour ball. How do you ascertain which ball is best for which player?
Well, I like the fact that the fitting arrangement is starting to be inclusive of golf balls because of the data we can get with a quality, and launch monitor, in our case, utilization of TrackMan. There are certain spin and launch conditions that players of all different types and speeds and talents are looking for. A lot of that comes out in the interview. What are you trying to do? And if you aspire to a certain level, a tour ball, and in our case, the 3 different tour balls that are out there perform very differently amongst each other. But in some cases, what their goal is, again, like with the fitting I had this morning, you get somebody who's launched and directionally challenged. A tour ball isn't always necessarily going to enhance that. So in this case, this gentleman had been buying Chrome Sauce for years and thought they were great. I had him try the ERC golf ball, and voila, he hit it significantly straighter because it spun a little less. He got a little bit more ball speed out of it. And he was excited to know that in his world, I probably saved him $15 a dozen. So in this case, I said, where your speed was before and your ability to hold greens would have been enhanced with a tour golf ball. But in this case, all things considered, this is something that you should look at. And I think a good part of the fitting process now, especially in my company where I've got a full family of golf balls that do perform differently, as we fit you into certain golf equipment, the golf ball in some case may not just be icing. It may be part of the meal that really affects how you play. And I'm excited as we continue to grow our share in golf ball with our deep commitment to the category. I do have different parts of that equation that I can add in that takes the fitting to an entirely new level, because golf ball really does matter.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we've kind of laid the foundation for why fittings matter. And I've been part of that discussion for a number of years. And I think that golfers, especially those that are more serious, I think they're nodding in agreement. Yep. The first time I got fit, it made a huge difference. I don't know why I waited so long. The technology has come along to make that fitting even more precise. It's not just eyeball anymore. Now there's data to back it up. And so I don't want to bury the lead, though, in our discussion, because in the world of Callaway, what's happening these days, it kind of begins and ends with this line called Rogue ST. Now, we've heard the name Rogue here for a few years. We certainly know that Callaway is at the leading side of the industry in innovation and technology. But when you start leading by a mile, what we call the counts or the tour counts in the professional levels, and that's literally where officials go and they count what's in the bags of the top players in the world. And Callaway is running away with it, especially in the world of fairway metals and drivers with this Rogue ST. What's the game changer in all of this? What's Rogue ST about?
Well, ST stands for speed tuned. And what I think that really has us focus on is the different elements that create albeit a driver, a fairway, or an iron. Each of those elements, through our use with artificial intelligence and the things that we learn from club to club, we are enhancing every single element of the golf club. And in certain instances, the foundation that we've got in place is excellent. So as you tweak things, you might pick up a little bit more club head speed. You might pick up more ball speed. You might have more consistent spin. I think the reference point that the company uses that I can grasp, again, coming back to automotive, is Formula One. They are working so hard to pick up and use weight more properly and increase the aerodynamics of the vehicle and all these things to enhance performance. So our use of carbon fiber is well established in the industry, and there's more carbon fiber for use in the golf club. You know, our jailbreak speed frame that's in the face of the previous driver has been enhanced and is now cast into the body of the golf club, things to make it more efficient. That big tungsten speed cartridge you see in the back of the golf club is not only a beautiful visual piece that you know that there's weight back there, but that's allowing us to give very consistent spin rates and ball speed across the entire boundary of the face, because golfers use the whole face, Bill. Even tour players,
We really do.
they might be a little bit more north and south with their miss. You know, we might be a whole lot more east and west. But the reality is how punished are you for hitting it off center? The goal is to make those shots so much closer to your kill shot. And I think we've done so many things with the use of artificial intelligence, with the foundation of our designs, where we have incrementally improved in so many different categories that in certain instances, the overall total was greater than what I even expected or would have predicted, because we've made an improvement here, there, and there. Well, all of a sudden, 3 or 4 improvements add to a pretty significant upgrade and change in the golf club.
Well, and the marketplace will be the barometer for whether or not you got it right. You know, your team of research and developers and scientists and engineers and CAD designers, you know, all the people who wear the white lab coats out there in Carlsbad, they can do all their work, but then the marketplace gets to give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And from what I'm observing, the marketplace is pretty darn excited about Rogue ST. It's some of the marketplace being the amateur world like I live in, and some of it being the men and women we see on TV on the weekends.
It's been great to see in our case. And again, I've got a pretty long history with Callaway here, to see products and how quickly the tour player is willing to move to the new model. The Rogue ST driver change was incredibly significant and virtually 100% coverage. When we see a lot of players playing in Hawaii, that's mean they've won a tournament in the previous year to get to play in the Tournament of Champions, which means they had some pretty good success with their Epic driver. So for them to make a change, which we do not demand, we certainly encourage and hope it occurs. When you start seeing 90-ish% crossover, that means the new golf club is performing in a manner that is better than what they had before. We're seeing growth in the fairway metal, which I told you, I think is the club that jumps the most in terms of the wood product. And it's about every 4 or 5 years, you'll see a fairway wood that just really catches your eye and changes things. The Rogue ST fairway wood family is something that I would encourage every one of your viewers and listeners to experience, because that's some game-changing technology. That is not an incremental improvement.
Yeah, it's
I like seeing the things that we do, and when we come out with new product with these life cycles of golf clubs, I am very proud to stand behind the changes that are made to the golf club to say, you're going to notice something really special here, and it's worthy of your consideration.
It is noteworthy. It's not just simply a new head cover on an old club. And that's one of the things that I've appreciated about the innovation. And by the way, those of you who have now heard Brian and I talk for 20-ish minutes, you understand that the man knows his stuff. What he didn't know was that I was planning to spring a little bit of a surprise on him during this conversation, because not only does Brian know his stuff, but his knowledge and his talent and his longevity at Callaway was recently recognized in a very powerful way. And I think we have a special guest who's checking in with us now to kind of help let everybody in on the secret. So let me officially welcome in to the FORE Golfers Network podcast. The Executive Vice President for Sales for Callaway Golf, Glenn Hickey, takes a couple minutes out of a pretty busy schedule. Glenn, how are you, sir?
I'm great, Bill. Thanks for having me.
I am glad to do it. You can probably see the other guy in this Zoom square with us, who's I think well deserving of
I
an
don't
award.
know who is that. I don't think I've ever seen it before.
So, Glenn, tell everybody what recognition Brian was honored
Well,
with.
2021 was a big year for Brian. So not only did he celebrate his 30th anniversary with Callaway, which is amazing. He's been our rep in the Detroit area since 1991. And in 2021, he was awarded the Callaway National Sales Rep of the Year, which is phenomenal. He's always done a great job for us. And in 2021, he just took it to another level and absolutely did a fantastic job for us.
Well, it's well deserved, and I know that it means more to Brian than he will ever let on. In the world of Callaway, as you continue dominating the space, the golf space as it is, I think our audience would be interested, Glenn, in learning how there are reps who are covering different regions. And so, Brian doesn't have all of Michigan because he would literally never be home, but it's broken into regions. So what makes one rep stand out above the crowd?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's building relationships with our customers and really being honest with the customers and really being there for them. I mean, 2021 was a year where because of all that was going on in the world, there were significant supply constraints. It wasn't as predictable when Brian would place an order for his customer. Historically, they'd get it within 3 or 4 days. And in 2021, because of all the constraints across the globe, it was more difficult. And Brian had to be honest and have tough discussions, but he also had to go out of his way to find products for customers. Maybe one shop needed something that another shop had, so Brian would locate it and go out of his way to take care of the needs of his customers. So like I said, it's really all about the relationships and having a trust in the partnership with Brian and with Callaway.
Well, and one of the things that I've appreciated about Brian over the years is that I haven't yet, at least in my presence, had him burst out into laughter after one of my swings. I mean, it might happen after I leave, I don't know, but at least while I'm actually there, he stifles it. I think that's a skill level, a skill that not many people possess.
Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. Yeah, but we really enjoy having Brian on the team. And like I said, he's been a teammate of mine. I've been with Callaway 30 years as well. So we kind of been on this journey together. And it's been fun working with Brian all these years.
Well, Glenn, I appreciate you checking in with us. Before I let you go, he and I were just talking about Rogue ST and the game-changing impact that it's having, even in its early part of its run. I mean, it's really just getting started, especially in the frozen parts of the country. And normally we would all gather at the PGA show and it would be the big unveiling in this massive exhibit space. And that all changed. I don't even know if that show is ever going to get back to where it was. And even without that gigantic injection of adrenaline into the brand, it looks like ST is ready to kind of stay on top of the leaderboard for quite some time. What are you seeing out there, and why do you think it's as special as it is?
Well, I think our R&D team, once again, has done a fabulous job creating a product that really does what they promise it to do. And in the Rogue ST driver in particular, we're seeing, consistency of ball speed, consistency of spin, dispersion that we've never seen before in terms of how tight that dispersion is. So, they've used and I'm sure Brian talked about it, but, we use the artificial intelligence and our supercomputer to really model the face. And what we've really done is created a face that no matter where the golfer hits it, and you and I probably know that we use all the driver face when we're out there playing golf. But in this case, no matter where you hit it, the spins are very consistent, the ball speeds are very consistent, and it just goes straight. So, we're seeing, significant gains in ball speed, but also in consistency as well.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, thank you for checking in and kind of adding to our little "This Is Your Life" surprise moment for Brian. Really appreciate it. Good seeing you.
Yeah, you got it. Appreciate having me.
All right.
Thanks,
That is
Brian. Take care.
Glenn Hickey, the Executive Vice President of Sales for Callaway Golf. And so, Brian, congratulations. It's the first time I think I've been able to say that on our program to you, and it's well deserved. And as we were talking before, Glenn so rudely interrupted us. There's quite a bit of story to tell. As I stood in our fitting session, and you for the first time put in my hands the Rogue ST driver, I look down and I see this beautiful matte finish. I don't know why that hasn't been there sooner, because it is very, very appealing to the eye. And then we saw, both through the driver and the fairway metals, we saw a new life, distance, responsiveness, feel, even more than I thought last year was untoppable. I have to think that you're going to be struggling to keep these in stock.
And that's a challenge that falls on Glenn, who is basically in charge of forecasting and trying to get an idea to the people who are producing heads and stuff for us, what sort of demand there's going to be. And this has been obviously a slippery slope in our industry these last 2 years. I don't think anybody knew for sure that this current environment was going to be such a bounty for golf. I will tell you, Glenn took a very broad stand that Callaway was going to be in a good position on it. And I will tell you, especially in 2020, that was a risky proposition. And Glenn was very confident. And as we got into 21, I think the momentum that we built on early was a whole lot more fully achieved last year, as we had the biggest year in our company's history. And now looking at this Rogue Ideal, we are seeing that there are some properties built into these golf clubs that allow us to take things a step further. And as Glenn said, I mean, what I really like the fact is we're not promising this egregious gain in distance. And oh my God, it has basically obsoleted everything in the sport. But if you start seeing more consistency on off-center hits where your field is tighter, so our longest driver ever with the greatest amount of forgiveness, you know, those are concepts that you're usually able to at least strive for one of the two, and you sacrifice in another area. And I'm very fortunate that, you know, with so much foundation of work that we've done to get us what I believe is some seriously game-changing equipment, I feel very confident that, again, you know, Glenn's got me by a couple of weeks in this company. There's not many guys who've been around longer than I have been, Bill. And he is very committed to putting Callaway in the best possible position to succeed, which means if you're entranced by a golf club and you get fit well for it, your ability to put your hands on it is really, really important. And there's an awful lot of things in this world that we like right now that you can't immediately put your hands on. Things significantly more important than a new driver, a new fairway, or a new hybrid. But if this is your passion, an extensive amount of work has gone in to put this really difficult product to make, to get it made, to get it here, and to have it available for golfers. And I think it'll be something that the consumer will absolutely appreciate, the opportunity to add Rogue ST to their arsenal.
Well, it's been in the winner's circle a couple times already this season, and fully expect to see that continue. We also, of course, went through our fitting. We went into the iron world. About 8 feet to my left here in my studio is my bag, my gamers. Those are my Apex irons. And I love them. Any error with them is user error. And a couple of years ago, you converted me over to a graphite shaft in my irons, although visually it doesn't look like it, but that's what they are. And just yesterday at church, I had a gentleman come up to me after church and he said, I got some new clubs. I just put them on order. And he kind of lowered his voice and he goes, and he's a little bit older than me. And he said, yeah, I got the graphites in the irons. Like he was telling a deep, dark secret. And I said to him, it's okay. You're among friends. You don't have to be ashamed. I've been there for a couple of years and it's wonderful. So as you do iron fittings, where is ego versus reality meeting technology coming into that discussion?
A lot of it is the hurdle to cross. Being convinced that the graphite shaft isn't less stable, isn't less forgiving, isn't just for older folks or slower swingers. And the graphite companies have worked exceptionally hard to get that across the board. And you certainly see it in every driver, every fairway, every hybrid. And the percentage of iron sales with graphite shafts grow. And I think as people go through a fitting process and learn just enough about those numbers, and you and I have discussed that there's an awful lot of numbers that tell you what's in the hot dog. And if you really just love a hot dog, let's just have a hot dog. But as you start seeing the ball launch higher, reach a higher apex point, carry further, those are all wonderful attributes to what graphite can bring to an iron. The fact that as we all get older and we start to fall apart to some degree or another, especially people who are hitting more golf balls than they've ever hit before, sometimes on less than forgiving surfaces hitting those golf balls, they're starting to realize some wrists, some elbows, some shoulder pain. And graphite being a tremendous absorber is an ancillary benefit to the product. That's why I started with it, because I like to hit golf balls. I don't get to play much, but I love hitting golf balls. And it was taking a physical toll on me. And graphite, thank you, Roger Cleveland, for introducing me into graphite shafted irons, to which, of course, my first response is, I'm not that old. I'm not trying to hit it higher and farther, Roger. And he goes, those are ancillary benefits to you. The big benefit is you'll be able to hit balls significantly to a greater extent with less pain.
Yeah.
I think as the golfer starts to realize, and, take a peek at some tour players, watch Matt Kuchar, watch Brandt Snedeker. I mean, these are world-class, top 75 in the world players who have adopted graphite shafts for whatever reason they chose to. We can only aspire to hit the ball anywhere close as good as, for example, those two individuals. You see a lot of graphite shaft use on the women's tour, which, as you and I have discussed before, the better playing amateur can, again, only hope to aspire to what the LPGA player brings. But the opportunity to have something that might feel better, might launch higher, might carry further, push Father Time a little further back. Now, he's not going to take everything I've got. And the quality and consistency of really good graphite shafts and irons makes them worthy of a wide spectrum of people to consider. I'm not saying you're all going to go there, but if you don't incorporate that into part of your fitting, you're really missing out on something that could be game-changing for you personally.
And the iron discussion also harkens back to what we said a few moments ago, which is it's not always the most expensive that's the best for your game. So yes, in the Callaway line, Apex is the Apex. It's at the top. That's why it's named accordingly. I am blessed to play it. But as we went through our fitting, you put some other irons in my hands and said, see how these feel to you. And well, they felt pretty darn good. And so we're going to, do some testing here once the snow melts and work through perhaps another option in the world of irons. So hit the brand name highlights for us in the world of irons so that our audience, when they head out to do their shopping, they don't just go to the Apex line and say, oh, that's a little out of my budget, I'm out. What other options are there?
I think the three core positions within the Apex family of the Apex, the DCB, or the deep cavity back, which is a more forgiving version of Apex. And then there's an Apex Pro, which has some tour use or some very low single digit qualities to it. Within the Rogue ST family, there is a Buick or a cousin to each of those. So you are an Apex player. And in that place, we put the Rogue ST in you. You saw a reasonably similar appearance. You got a really nice jump in ball speed. You saw some opportunity there. And again, as I told you, the beauty of Apex is how great it looks and how great it feels. Can we get something that approximates that in a casted golf club that might give the average player a belief that it is more forgiving? Well, forged golf clubs are for good players. Casted golf clubs are for less than players. That standard those lines have blurred a little bit, but it's definitely worth the comparison. For the more forgiving golf club, that DCB proved that, a 14, 15 handicap can play a forged golf club and enjoy all the benefits of Apex and not lose forgiveness and not lose launch. The Rogue ST OS, or oversized version, is in tune with that. I'll get some good players who really appreciate the thin profile of the Apex Pro. It is a work of art. I still believe it's the most beautiful iron that I've sold in my 30 years with Callaway, but the player type is kind of 5 handicap and down. Well, there's a Rogue Pro that has an awful lot of the hallmarks of the Apex Pro. And again, there's a little bit of a cost savings. So I think in each of these cases, as I told you, I'm so impressed by Scott Manwaring, who is our iron genius, to create this absolutely top of the line, to create a category, which is Apex, which every manufacturer aspires to have their own version of that. For him to create a family of Rogue ST that has so many of those playing capabilities of the other golf club, it's really giving you a choice between a Cadillac and a Buick. And if you end up finding the Buick, you're not settling for anything. It just happened to fit you better. And I'm really proud that I've got something in each category that you will take that test drive, as we discussed, how many GM dealers that offer both. And yes, that salesman might prefer that you like the Cadillac. But by testing both, you can see where your dollars are best spent. And the beauty is that some of the technologies are shared between the two. So you know the engines are good. You know the look is great. You know the feel is unsurpassed. And you're choosing between A and B. And the best part is if you're choosing between that A and B within, you're choosing a Callaway club.
It always, I don't know, kind of makes me chuckle a little bit when I see golfers look in another golfer's bag and they're jealous because it's a brand or it's a model that they aren't using, and oh, look who went and got all fancy and that kind of thing. If you have the right clubs in your bag, I don't know why you would ever need to look in anybody else's bag. I don't think there's any benefit to it. It's literally pointless. Golf is hard enough mentally. You don't need to be staring over at somebody else's bag and all of a sudden you're envious of what they have. If you've been fitted and you're convinced that those are the right clubs for you, then you've got the right clubs.
You're absolutely right. And there's so many things that, we can use the analogies in life as to where you can spend your dollars the most wisely. And there's certainly brands out there, and on the sly, I'm glad they're out there, that are significantly more expensive than mine. And at that point, if you want a decorator golf club, believe me, they're out there and available. I think the value spend is what do you get out of your spend? And the fact that Apex has become a dominant iron in our industry, that every other company now has something like it, lets me know that there's an awful lot of people who believe that that was a quality spend, and it is not an inexpensive golf club by any stretch.
Right.
But as we get there into that ideal, how you spend your money, the foundation of getting fit and trying both, because I can make both of them work for you. And then it does become a choice of maybe it's feel, maybe it's look, maybe it is budget. But let's get performance first and then figure out the budgetary things after. Because if I can give you something that performs to your expectations and we can do it for less, I'm just happy to have you on Team Callaway.
Yeah, I'm also glad that Team Callaway doesn't feel the need to scream at me and call me sweetheart in commercials. But those are my words, not yours. The louder you scream, I feel the less confident you actually are in your product. I kind of prefer to let the product do the talking. One last thing before we wrap up. In these last couple of minutes, I've been seeing, when I turn on golf on television, I've been seeing an awful lot of Callaway players with putters in their hands that have a fire engine red shaft in them. And I got to think that Mr. Sean Toulon is up to something out there in those Carlsbad studios. What are we seeing with the red shaft?
I think Sean Toulon has an amazing gift in our industry to create phenomenal golf clubs, but also make them eye-catching and eye-appealing. And one comes before the other. But he has an ability to create game-changing, in this case, putter product, but make sure you notice it. And that red Stroke Lab shaft, I mean, we've gone through a number of iterations of the Stroke Lab, and it is a better putting engine. It is lighter, it is stiffer, it allows more weight to be placed in the outstanding parts, both in the head and underneath the grip of the golf club. But the visibility is unbelievable. There are a number of putters out there in the world that if you see them from the back, they look like everybody else's. Now, if you see ours, you see the white insert, you pretty much know that that's a White Hot and it's an Odyssey. But from a broad distance, the putter category is that whole flattery deal. There's a lot of imitation out there. And what was always Karsten Ping heads copied, now it's mostly Odyssey copied. But you can't replicate the White Hot insert. You can't replicate Stroke Lab. And Sean has found a way that from a hole away, well, that must be an Odyssey. And I give him tons of credit for it because there's an awful lot of Odyssey use out there. It is the dominant putter model. More than half of virtually every tour event, whatever brand they're touting or playing, there's an Odyssey putter there. And I love the fact that it is powerfully visual, that must be an Odyssey with that Stroke Lab shaft. So there is a cosmetic and a marketing side to that, but no inherently down to brass tacks. It's a better shaft and makes a better putter. Sean Toulon's got an amazing ability to bring both together.
I was just thinking that for every time viewers love seeing the worm's eye view of a putt where that camera is down on the green, I would have to think Mr. Toulon likes that view even more, because I don't know that there's any other moment during a televised tournament when the club itself gets as much exposure as on a putt, where they try to get creative so you can see the break and all that stuff. So it's good stuff. And again, it's one of those things that I cannot wait to test somewhere other than the carpet in my studio as all that stuff comes together. And it's another reason why this is an exciting time of year, because it's that sense of anticipation. I'm still waiting for my invitation to play in the Masters. Probably not this year, maybe next year, you never know. But as we get nearer to spring, the excitement about just trying out those new clubs, seeing how it all comes together. That's really one of what gets us through winter in the snow belt part of the world. So thanks for the overview. Thanks for the great fitting session we had the other day. And congratulations again, super well deserved as the National Sales Rep of the Year. Now you have to defend the title. I don't know how that happens. You're going to go back to back.
Well, it was a thrill, as I expressed to you, that in our company's biggest year ever, the old timer was able to rally and post I guess the best year and our biggest year ever. And I've enjoyed the Callaway ride. We are in a really good position as a company. We love our partnership with you, giving the golf world the opportunity to have some exposure, some understanding. Your credibility is second to none. I enjoy being a guest on your show and having the opportunity to reach your audience with what I still believe is unquestioned.